Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Canvas Live. Canvas Live sessions are presented by Canvas community members and Instructure employees, and our goal is to help Canvas users improve and enhance their teaching and learning with Canvas. And today, I am delighted to be able to present to you one of the presentations that's part of our CanvasCon IUPUI extended series. This morning, Renee Mungans is going to be presenting on using Canvas to provide general education courses for a small college in the third world. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Renee.
Hi, I'm excited to share with you today about my unique use of Canvas. I will admit right from the beginning that I might not be the fanciest, most advanced Canvas user, but I do believe that I probably use Canvas in a way that is pretty unique and unusual. And perhaps today you will learn a couple things about designing a Canvas course, but more importantly, you'll see how Canvas can really have a global impact on third world countries. So I decided to divide the class and present my material using the basic journalism news league questions. About half of the time I'm going to talk about what I do to teach with Canvas in a third world country. And then near the end, I'll share a few tips and suggestions that I have for making an effective Canvas course. First of all, allow me to introduce myself in a little more detailed way. My name is Renee Mungans. You can see my credentials there, and also my varied and eclectic mix of current teaching positions. Yes, I do all those things at the same time. I like a challenge. I am a full-time high school teacher and curriculum coordinator where I live in Toledo, Ohio. I also teach online classes for Heidelberg University, and those are courses that were written by another person, so I am just the proctor of the classes in their graduate school. And then, and this is the place where Canvas comes into play, I'm an adjunct professor for Fairview Baptist Bible College in Ramble, Hanover, Jamaica. I use Canvas to teach general education courses, and specifically in English. English is kind of my area of concentration. I've taught English at both the high school and the college level. The courses that I've designed using Canvas are ones that would typically be taken by college freshmen in the United States. And I've made so far 2 classes using Canvas. Each of those are 3 credit hour courses. The classes that I've written are English grammar, which I teach now annually in the fall semester for the college, and then English composition, which the students take in the spring semester. When we first rolled these classes out, it was necessary for all the current enrolled students at the college to take the class all at the same time. But now that we've run through the English grammar class 2 different years, and we've done the English composition class just once this past spring semester, everyone is caught up with these classes, so to speak. So our plan for the future is that incoming freshmen will take these 2 courses. Occasionally, the college also has students that are non-traditional. Maybe they're local teachers in the area, or there's somebody who's just interested in taking a few classes to enhance whatever they do professionally. And so they might take these classes and not be a part of the full campus experience. Now, one of the interesting things about my courses and my teaching is with Canvas is that I also teach at this college in person once a year. And I think this is really significant for my use of Canvas. It's a luxury that not every online professor would have. I'm a traditional classroom teacher. I've taught for a very long time. I like interacting with students. It's my preference. And so I like the fact that I get to go to Jamaica and teach in person before the students actually end up taking these online classes. So each year in September, I fly to Jamaica to teach a module on research writing. Now, this also becomes a 3-credit-hour class. They take a module 1 year for 3 years in a row, and then that gives them their 3 credit hours in research writing. So you can see that all together, they get 9 credit hours, general education credit hours in the subject of English. I like going to Jamaica because, well, it's Jamaica, but also because it allows me to meet all of the students, to get to know them personally, and to make a connection with them. And because I'm teaching in another country that has a different culture, I think it's really important that I've met them and that I understand them as individuals, because it allows me to better meet their needs in a way that's connected. It would be very easy for me to just send, emails like, why aren't you getting your work in on time? You're falling behind, and maybe get a little bit too negative. But because I have met the students and I know them personally and we have a relationship, when I do interact with them about their online work, I think it goes much better. So here's the exact location of where Canvas is used. As I've already said, it's for a college in Ramble, Hanover, Jamaica. I like to use this map because as soon as you say you teach in Jamaica, people have visions of resorts and beaches. And quite honestly, I've gone to the beach, but don't usually get in the water when I'm there. And I have driven by the resorts one time, but as you can see from this map and the box in green on the left side, where I teach is far removed from the resort location. So each year when I go there to teach my module, I fly into the only airport, which is in Montego Bay, and then it's an hour's drive straight up into the mountains into a very rural location where the college is located. My relationship with the folks in Jamaica began about 5 years ago when I went there with a church group of 32 people for a missions trip. And our main purpose was to build a library for the college campus. It was a construction trip. I must tell you that I had never been out of North America. In fact, to date, although I have been to Jamaica now 6 times, I have still never been west of Nebraska. So I am not by any means a world traveler. This was the hugest adventure of my life. And while I was on this missions trip, I reconnected with a friend of mine that I'd known since my college days because he was the academic dean at this school. Now, I think that my brother was a little bit sneaky and had already suggested to this man that I might be a candidate for their teaching staff. So when we would take a break from the construction project, he and I would have this never-ending stream of dialogue in which we discussed the possibility of my coming there to teach. This is really kind of a nifty thing because it allows me to help their school, but I don't have to give up my regular paying jobs in order to also be a service to this third world country. So after this first trip to Jamaica, I went the next year to teach the research writing module, and then I'll explain as we go along how the online classes came into being. First of all, just a few demographics about the college where Canvas is being used. I've already mentioned to you that it's in a very rural location. There is no air conditioning on campus, very spotty internet access. I say spotty because it goes in and out fairly regularly. And the classrooms are very sparse. If you can picture a classroom in the 1960s. That's basically what their classrooms look like on their campus. Right now, the college is very small. The typical enrollment from year to year has been around 9 to 15 students. The college began back in the 1960s, but thanks to a couple of hurricanes that hit the island very severely, in fact, one in which there was so much damage to the college that it had to be closed for a year. And they really lost momentum at that point. Their enrollment dissipated. And so now that the last number of years, they've been in a rebuilding phase. And that's where my friend, the academic dean, really came into play, because he went to Jamaica as a full-time missionary, but a very credentialed individual. And he became their academic dean with the sole purpose, really, of advancing their curriculum to be much more rigorous, and then also to get them some accreditations that would draw more students to their college. And along with that, he needed to have a group of credentialed instructors in order to qualify for the accreditation. So when I came along on the missions trip, as somebody who had not had a PhD for a very long time, but was eager to use it, I was the perfect person really to help them out. The students in Jamaica come to them just like our college freshmen do in the US with diplomas from the local public school. And they go to Fairview for the purpose of either obtaining a one-year Bible degree, a two-year associate's degree, or a four-year bachelor's degree. And just this past year was the first year that they expanded to their new bachelor's program. And again, this is honestly due to the general education courses in English that allowed them to have enough course offerings to be able to offer a four-year bachelor's degree. At the moment, they only offer that in two ministry areas, but obviously they would be looking to expand that in the future. This is not a college that has a lot of advanced math courses or science or anything like that. And really, they don't need those classes, because their main emphasis, as I wrote here, is to train Jamaicans for Christian ministry. So the students who graduate from this college are going to go on to ministry-oriented careers. By the way, the pictures that you see occasionally on my slides are actually of my students, past and present. In fact, at the bottom of this slide, this is the group of students that I taught this past year, many of whom have now graduated from the college. There are many answers to the why questions, but the first why, as far as why I use Canvas and why it's been so beneficial to the college in Jamaica, is because they do truly need training in English. Now, yes, of course, they speak English, but unlike colleges and even high schools in the United States, Jamaica is not yet at a point where they're emphasizing writing like we do. Since I've been in the field of education for a long time, I can kind of point to the time when maybe a decade ago, we began really emphasizing academic writing. In fact, I think there was even a big change in college course offerings, in that much of the assignment work now has to do with writing, certainly at the graduate level. But in Jamaican schools, writing is not stressed. In fact, I have never encountered a student in my Jamaican classes who's written a research paper ever in high school. Now, we would think that's scandalous in America, because we would expect students in every year of high school to write at least one significant research paper, but that is not the case in Jamaica. So they have a good background in the rudiments of grammar, but they do not have an ability to write in an academic style. I think this is a little bit compounded too by their culture. In Jamaica, they are extremely polite, and they also tend to have both flowery speech and writing. And I say flowery because they can use an amazing number of sentences without ever actually getting to the point. Getting to a point and staying on a point can prove to be challenging to them. So, as I already mentioned, Fairview needed some more general education classes, and we came up with the idea of using Canvas as a means to supplying the students with extra classes. Now, the big area where Canvas comes into play is the fact that this is not a country with money. It saddens me to think that people who fly into Jamaica for a vacation at a resort may never truly understand and most likely never see in person how impoverished this country is. They make, of course, a large amount of their country's income through tourism, but they're a country that has been in debt forever. And they never managed to work off that indebtedness. And most of the people live very simple lives that are much beneath the socioeconomic status of the average person in the United States. Now, not only do the people lack money, but so does the college. They do not have the funds or the resources to be able to hire additional faculty. So this is a real stopper for them. And because of that, I came into the picture and was willing to work literally for free. I guess you would call this my pro bono work. I have the blessing of 2 great jobs, and I have no financial needs. Therefore, I can help this school without charging them literally a penny. They don't pay my travel expenses. They have literally never given me a cent, and I have never asked them for a cent. And not only could the college not afford me, but the students could not afford the tuition to take these classes online. If they were to take a regular class online from a college in the United States simply to get the additional courses that they would need for a bachelor's degree, we would anticipate those classes maybe costing about $1,000 a piece. US money, that'd be $10,000 in Jamaican money, and they don't have that kind of money. So they would not otherwise have an opportunity to finish a degree without this system that we have worked out for them. So at this point, I want to show you a few pages from my actual Canvas courses that I've designed for them, and just kind of talk through the structure that I set up for my Canvas classes. Now, again, I must tell you that someone watching this could be much more advanced in web design, in course design than I am. But I guess that's one of the things that I've really appreciated about Canvas. It's so user-friendly that somebody like me could come along with kind of a extreme idea. Oh, sure, I'll write some college classes for you, no problem. And then I just literally plunged in. So this is the home page for the first class that I ever wrote, the English grammar course. And I'll talk in a little bit about some of the suggestions I have that involve some of the basic design components that I used for this class and the second class that I wrote. As far as the how question is concerned, I have 3 or 4 basic points that I'd like to go over related to my use of Canvas in the designing of these classes. I have some background in graphic arts. Was a yearbook advisor at the high school level for 17 years. And so the use of color and graphics is super important to me. Whether I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation or designing an online class, I want it to be eye-appealing. So you noticed in the previous slide that I used the college's logo to personalize the home page. Now, my friend, the academic dean of Fairview, also used Canvas, because he taught for a college here in the States. While he was in Jamaica, he had a little side job teaching an online class for a college in the US. That college had purchased the Canvas interface to use for their online courses. So when it came to choosing a venue for these classes, he said, well, hey, there's a free version of Canvas. Let's look into that. But even though I was using the free version, that doesn't mean that you can't specialize it to make it look like it really belongs to that college. I think that's important. And then let me just go back and point out some of the other content that I used on the homepage that I think can be effective ideas for starting an online class. Because this is an online class, I thought it was important for the students to occasionally see me. Now, again, some people may write online classes and use tons of videos. I find that to be fairly labor intensive. I started out with the idea that I would just put a few videos on the class, and maybe as time goes on, I'll have an opportunity to make more and then add them to the course. So at the very beginning, I have a little video in which I introduce the class itself and talk briefly about the content of the course. And then I have a list of the modules that are going to be offered in the class. And at the bottom of that homepage, you couldn't see that part, but there's also a little video in which I introduce myself. And those are videos in which you can see me. I think anybody can do this because I'm a semi-techie person, but I really had never made personal videos before I started using Canvas. And so I just found Screencast-O-Matic online, and it's a free program, and you can make little videos, and it's pretty user-friendly. So that's the one that I use to make the videos that I ultimately embedded in the course. And you can either use the video format where you're just showing the PowerPoint, like in this class today, or you can do one in which you are live and they only see your face, or the combination in which they see a PowerPoint and your face is in the corner. Whenever possible on my videos, I like for them to see me because it's more personalized and it breaks up the course where normally they're just going to be reading pages of information. I use the Modules tab on Canvas to organize the course content by the week. I'm so glad the academic dean came along and made this suggestion to me, because I was kind of muddling along trying to make an outline for the class when I first got started. And he said, well, why not use modules for the weeks in the course? So the class is 13 weeks long. Each class had 13 modules. In Module 1, I begin with 1 or 2 orientation lessons. I think it's important to assume that most students will not have taken an online class before. Now, this is not just the case in Jamaica. I think this can even be the case in the US. Again, I teach for a university online here in the US, and sometimes it's kind of funny how often students will send me an email the first week of the class and say, I've never taken an online class before. And I always chuckle when I read those emails because they kind of are acting like maybe they're the only person who's never taken an online class, but there's a lot of people out there for whom this is a first-time experience. And I've kind of developed a video in which I offer advice for success in online classes. I originally made this video and this presentation for high school students because I taught a senior seminar class in which I prepared high school students for college. And I know they'll be taking online classes. Hey, they love online. They want to take online classes. And I wanted to give them some guidelines as far as how to organize themselves, how to make sure they meet deadlines, how to acquaint themselves with the website, and just, basic tips for how to be successful as an online student. The second most common email that I receive from students when a course begins after they say, I'm new to online, is generally a question that they probably wouldn't have needed to ask if They had taken the time to navigate through all the tabs on the website before they wrote to me. Now, I answered that question graciously, but my big advice to online students is always click on every tab, get acquainted with what's behind that tab, so when you're looking for something or you need something, you've already figured out where that's going to be located. Also, in my orientation lesson, I have a whole list of the course expectations. Some of that's a little bit replicated from the syllabus, but since the syllabus is on a separate tab, I think it's important to repeat it at the beginning of the course in case not everybody went right to the syllabus. I'm such a traditional person that when I personally take an online class, I go on the website and print out a bunch of stuff and put it in a notebook and lay it in front of me. But the true online student is probably not doing that. So the course expectations in the first lesson ensures that they're going to see the information about the required textbook, the homework that they can expect, and so on. Each of the modules, again, which represent 1 week in the course, tended to have about 2 to 3 pages of teaching, actual content that I typed out, and then 2 to 3 tasks, which were either assignments or quizzes using those features on the Canvas site. Now, I also think color can be effective in an online class. I like the use of color and just how it visually enhances your course. I think it's important to take advantage of all of the little design features that are offered even in the free version of Canvas. I've never used the other version of Canvas, so I don't really know what I'm missing out on, I guess. But there's so much that you can do to enhance the look of your web class just using the features that are available. So I designed this little sequence in which I color-coded information on the class so that it would really pop out to the students when they came along to it. You can see here that if I gave them a reading assignment from their text, I typed that in a blue font. And in English classes, they didn't have a ton of reading. So when there was a reading assignment, it was kind of important that that stood out to them. Assignments were typed in purple. Quizzes were in orange. And then as I was writing these classes, a lot of writing tips popped into my head. I'm really a research writing teacher at heart. And so as I would think of a tip that would just help their writing, their sentence structure, their cohesion, whatever it would be, I just wrote a little blurb in green as kind of a special quote from me to them. I also think that it's important to use graphics. Obviously, there are a lot of free graphics that one can carefully obtain from the internet. Sometimes, because I like design work, it was a nice break for me to just put together a little graphic myself. I tend to see concepts in my head using charts and graphs. That's the way I think. I'm not quite as much of a linear thinker. So when I started writing the English composition class, this little picture of a pyramid kind of popped into my head. By the way, the page that you're looking at right now is from my English composition course, and this is like the second page right after the home page for that class. So I designed this little pyramid and found this little guy with the pencil and put that all together. Now, not everybody would want to mess around with that kind of work, but it's really easy to upload graphics. I didn't ever run into a situation where I couldn't upload something that I wanted to use unless it was just a crazy big file for some reason. But there really isn't like a maximum. So on every page of content that I have for my classes, I try to use at least one graphic that might appear at the beginning of the page if not 2 graphics. I mean, it doesn't need to be cartoonish. This is a college class. But again, it makes the learning experience more enjoyable for the students. And then you can also use, of course, videos. As we all know, you can find a video on everything under the sun now on YouTube. It's hard to imagine how we survived without videos that give us information on everything from sewing to car repair. So there's plenty of videos that have already been made by helpful folks that one can use in their Canvas class. Apart from, as I've already mentioned, making your own videos. Now, in the English grammar class, we used as our text the Blue Book of Grammar. And it just so happens that that text has its own website with its own instructional videos that were produced by the author of the text. So in the English grammar class, most of the videos took the students out to that website that was connected with their text and to those videos. And I thought it was a really great idea for them to be able to read the content on my page, then click on a video and hear someone else teaching that concept, but using a whiteboard and writing out sentences and circling adjectives and things like that. I reinforced the lesson and used the visual aspect of learning. So I think it's also important to include a lot of videos in your class. Again, this is another picture of my students working in Jamaica. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Internet Challenge coming up here soon. But it's significant that this picture was taken in the school library because that's the building that I helped to build. But it's also important to note that it really was about the best place on campus to get the most reliable internet access. When I first went to Jamaica, we are not talking about a campus where students were oriented to study hours, research time, hanging out in the library. And, you know, the academic dean and I were kind of horrified by the fact that they were so willy-nilly about their study routine. But boy, once that big, beautiful library was built, it's actually the second story of a building. Beneath it is now the administrative offices. But once that library was built, we began to teach the students the value of going to the library to hang out, to do your research, to do your studying. And we really had to kind of create a study atmosphere, a study routine on the college campus, and the library played an important role there. So the fact that the library is also the best spot for the internet really draws the students. When I'm there on campus teaching, I set up a little station for myself in the library every morning because I teach my modules in the afternoons. And I'm always delighted to see the number of students who come in and set up and just get right to work. Again, because 5 or 6 years ago, this is not something that they would have done. So here's a little suggestion about using the announcement tab on the Canvas program. I used it primarily to keep the students informed about upcoming work and also to keep them on track as far as getting their assignments done. I picked to show you here one of my perhaps less aggressive reminders. I use a reminder announcement about once a week when I'm teaching, and most of the time I'm basically pleading with the students to make sure they're getting their work turned in on time, because that proved to be one of their greatest challenges. But also I use the announcement tab if I knew that coming up maybe there was more work the next week, or there was something a little bit different, because after 2 or 3 weeks, we really get into a routine. I tended to make assignments due every week on the same days of the week. I know what their academic schedule is in their other classes, so I kind of plug in my work around that. But every once in a while, I knew they were going to need to do something a little bit different, And I felt like I should use the announcement tab to kind of shout that out and bring it to their attention, because that's just another way of ensuring that they're staying on track with their work. Every course needs meaningful evaluation, and of course, Canvas gives us plenty of opportunity to do that, because the homework tab is great, but in a grammar or even in an English writing class, it's not always going to be possible to use the built-in methods for generating assignments. Sometimes I needed to use a Word document. Now, because my class size is small, this never became an unmanageable situation for me. This is my non-paying job, so I'm pretty strict about making sure that all my work for the day is done for my paying teaching jobs. And then my last component late in the evening every day is checking in with my students in Jamaica and grading their assignments or interacting with them by email if need be. So when I gave the English grammar tests, those needed to be Word documents so that they could respond in a little bit deeper way. Obviously, when one writes an online class, you want to make sure your tests are not going to be the type where students just open the textbook, find the answers, and type it in. We had kind of an extra security measure, I guess you would say, in Jamaica. When they took the test, they had to take the test in the library. It was proctored by the librarian who signed off on their test before they emailed it back to me. And that was just kind of a good system that we had to make sure that basically they weren't working together or helping each other with their answers to the questions. Because some of the work had to be done off-site, so to speak, they didn't necessarily see all of their grades embedded in the Canvas grading system, and I'll talk more about that coming up. I think it's super important in online education to keep current with your grading. I'm pretty fanatical about that. I believe that 24 to 48 hours is an appropriate length of time for getting graded work back to students. And by that, I mean the work that maybe you yourself have to grade and submit back to them. We had a situation last year in which we had another instructor teach the English grammar course to kind of lighten my workload. Unfortunately, that person had a heavy teaching responsibility in other areas and was not able to keep up with the grading of the work. And I felt really badly for the students that sometimes a few weeks would go by and then suddenly they would get a big batch of feedback. I don't really think that lent itself to effective instruction. And so I think it's really important that they see where they are so they can build on that for the next assignments that they're doing. Another thing that didn't really fit with the Canvas homework format is in the area of writing. In the English composition class, obviously they've got to write. That's the whole point of the class. So I use the homework tab occasionally for basic concepts, and I also used it for quizzes. However, they definitely had to do writing assignments to keep that manageable. After I introduced a concept, I generally ask them to write just one paragraph. Again, that lightened my load and made it possible for me to keep up with the grading. So those had to be submitted by email, and then I would grade them and return them to the students. Now, Fairview uses a cloud-based management system for grading. So although when you give an assignment on Canvas, it grades automatically and it posts to the grading tab, in my classes, in order for the students to see what their real grade was up to the minute, they had to go to that cloud-based system that Fairview used. So I basically transferred the grades out of Canvas onto this other system, then also put in the grades for the work that I had to manually grade. I graded everything using the corrections tab in Word, and then I sent the documents back to the students by email because I thought it was important for them to get that level of feedback in English classes and especially in writing classes. Now, if it seems like this was like a ton of extra work outside of the website, it was not. So I wouldn't want you to think that. That was pretty minimal, and it was very manageable, and partly that was due to the fact that I asked them to keep the class size small for the English composition class. Some students may have to wait till this next year to take that class. Everybody was eager to take it the first year it rolled out, but I knew that I could only manage a certain number of students effectively. So let's talk about some basic challenges. And I'll just kind of share with you some ideas for how I overcame them. First of all, you've got to have time to write an online class, and that's very time consuming. I worked for about 6 to 8 hours for 6 to 8 weeks during my summer vacations, 2 different summers. That might not sound too glamorous, but I really like this kind of work, and so I was happy to do so. You do have to acclimate yourself to the Canvas platform. It helps if you know someone who has used Canvas. So if you get stuck, you can ask them a question. Or if you yourself have either taken an online class using a different platform or you've taught online classes, once you get on Canvas, it's going to be pretty easy for you at that point. I really appreciate how intuitive Canvas is and how easy it was for me as a first-time user to use it with relatively few, if any, frustrations. Also, I have to give a shout out for the Canvas help guides because I think they're really fantastic. Just yesterday, I was trying to learn a different system for the school where I teach. It has to do with curriculum, but anyway, I was trying to figure out how to use it. I'd never been an administrator before. I wanted to go to the help guides and just ask and answer, get the answer to a question. Oh no, there was a 26-minute video. Now videos are great, but when you have a quick question, there's nothing like a good help guide. And I was able to figure out so many things at home on my own just using the Canvas help guides. Now I'm looking at my time and I'm recognizing that I definitely need to speed along here. So let me just share with you, because this was the whole purpose of this class, a few challenges that need to be overcome when using Canvas or any platform for that matter, and you're reaching students in a third world country. You must be culturally relevant. Now we know that, but it's easier said than done sometimes. You need to be aware of the culture in that place where the students are going to receive your class so that you can make sure that your material is relatable. And you also want to think about things like your graphics and your videos. They either need to be neutral or they need to be reflective of that culture. And when I go to Jamaica, I'm the only fair-skinned person on campus. And I need to adapt to their way of being, not vice versa. And so it definitely helps that I go there to teach every year because it's allowed me to get to know and understand their culture and then build that in. When I write the English classes, I actually wrote sentences in their assignments that were related to, for example, their cafeteria or their daily routine. So they were kind of reading about themselves when they were doing their homework, and I think that made it a lot more relatable. You have to also adapt to their cultural differences. In Jamaica, they have a much different sense of time, which is also true of many other countries of the world. They do not operate at the crazy hectic pace that we do, and therefore they have a tendency to kind of put off work where I would get on it immediately, them not so much. They have a completely different attitude about deadlines. I'll mention here one thing that I plan to do differently as I roll out these classes for the coming academic year. As with most online classes, your typical deadline for work is 11:59 on any given day. That posed somewhat of a frustration for me, because in Jamaica, they would literally wait until 11:59 to turn in their work. I'm not exactly sure why, but that was to them like just the norm. And yet it became a frustration for me, because then I wouldn't see their submitted work until the next morning, when I'm getting up and going to my full-time teaching job, and I don't really have time to address their work or any questions or concerns that they might have. And so I had to wait then till much later in the evening to do their work. And I wished that they were turning it in to me a little earlier in the evening, literally before I went to bed, so that I could respond before the end of the day. Therefore, I'm planning for this coming year, as an adjustment to their culture, to make the assignments due a little earlier in the evening, so that I get a first look at them before my day is done. And I think that will just actually erase a little frustration for myself as the proctor of the classes. Another one of our challenges, and this is one that to date we really don't have a solution to, is their unreliable internet. We need to remember that in third world countries, the internet is not as abundant as it is here in the States or other places of the world even. First of all, they have a lot of electrical outages in Jamaica. This is due to the incredible storms that they have. When I go in September, that's still kind of like their rainy, hot season. Our fall is their warm weather season, their warmest weather. And when they get storms, which is almost every afternoon, the lightning literally sizzles to the ground. They have pretty crazy stories about lightning strikes. And that causes a lot of power outages, and the power company may take several hours before restoring electricity. So obviously the internet is down during that time. But even when we have electricity, the internet can go off on a regular basis. Sometimes it happened every day, sometimes only a couple times a week. Sometimes we'd have a longer stretch where we actually had solid internet. But the problem is that this is a college in the mountains. And so the internet access, there's only one or two companies that even provide service to that area. It's not a strong signal. It goes out a lot. We have literally poured equipment onto that campus. It is not for lack of equipment, but it's just the facts of the internet access that they have right now. We hope all the time that that will get better in the years to come. The students know that they cannot really use an internet outage as an excuse for not keeping up with their work. If there is ever an outage that lasts for 24 hours or more, I'm notified by the administration of the college that there may be a delay in getting their work done. But typically the outages are only for a few hours, and the students have to learn to work around those because that's just part of their reality. In conclusion, I wanted to list quickly a few reasons why I'm a huge fan of Canvas. First of all, Canvas is very well organized. It's easy for someone like me as a first-time writer of a class, and it's also easy for students to navigate. It's a platform that looks very professional. It has a toolbar that has all the features one would need for an online class. It's very reliable. I've never really had any problems with it at all. And it has a free version, which of course has proven to be huge for me and for the students that I teach. I appreciate your attention through this presentation, which ended up going a little longer than I even thought I might talk, but once I get rolling, I'm a teacher, so I'm a good talker. At this point, I'm going to just allow for a quick opportunity for any questions. If anyone who is listening today has something that they would like to ask before we sign off.
Well, thank you so much, Renee. That was fantastic. And so far, we don't have any questions posted in the chat, but we would like to take a moment here and we'll just pause so that if anyone who's currently watching has a question that they would like to pose to Renee, please post it in the live chat and we will address it now. And of course, If you're watching the recording later on and you have any questions, please put them in the comments section of the Canvas Live event itself, and we'll be able to address those, of course, after the fact. So I'm just going to wait a moment here and make sure that we don't have any questions from our live participants. Well, it looks like we do not. So with that, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Renee for her generosity in taking the time to present this CanvasCon IUPUI extended session. I would like to invite everyone who's listening to please get involved in the Canvas community. That is Canvas LMS, community.canvaslms.com. Please get involved in Canvas Live. You can navigate to live.canvaslms.com and follow it so that you're notified of our upcoming events. You can join the Canvas Live user group, and that's where you can collaborate on presentations with other users. And last, hang out in our Canvas chat rooms. Connect in real time with other Canvas users. So we're going to wrap up. I'll say thank you yet again to Renee, and thank you to all of you who are listening, and have a wonderful day.